Hello Serie A fan. The end is nigh as we head into the final weekend, but there's still glory to be won, plus those 2 Champions League spots for Milan, Juve and Napoli to scrap over. We talk about who's up for it and who's up to it, plus more items on Boaz's list of things not to do, and a curious tattoo, on this episode of Scudetto. Hello and welcome to Scudetto, your weekly roundup of top-flight Italian football. And here we are on the penultimate episode of our debut season. We've had our Serie A champions for a few weeks now, and we've just got our Coppa Italia champions. Relegation battle's been decided, but we still have 2 out of the 4 Champions League spots to play for. So lots for us to discuss this evening, and I'm going to be expecting full effort from the Scudetto squad. Kenny, feeling up for that?
Up for it, yes.
Good news, and Boaz, I hope you're feeling up for it as well.
I can't say I'm as energetic as I was last week, but I'll do my best.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. Kenny, it's your turn to go first in this section. How's your week been? Have you got any exciting tales to tell?
Yes, it's been a good week, yeah. I obviously got vaccinated, as I told you all last week that I was going to. I didn't chicken out or anything. So that was notable. And also this week, for the first time in about 9 months, I actually went to a restaurant and had a very nice meal. So that was pretty amazing. And interestingly enough, actually, the waiter who served us turned out to be a Roma fan, which was
Jose Mourinho.
It was not Jose Mourinho, no. So
He said fan.
This Roma fan was actually a Roma fan from Rome, and when I found out he was from Rome, I asked him if he supported Roma or Lazio, and he got a bit cross with me and said, "You don't ask a Roman that question because Lazio fans are not real Romans." Oof.
Good man. Good stuff. And how was the food? Well, I assume it was an Italian restaurant, was it?
It was not an Italian restaurant. No, it was a steak restaurant, and the food was excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. And on that topic, have you got a beverage this evening?
A reliable centre back, a Brewdog, Dead Pony Club tonight for me.
Good stuff. And how about you, Buzz? How are you getting on?
Well, from a football perspective, I'm doing much worse than I was doing last week, but from a life perspective, I'm doing moderately better. Last week, I was channeling my inner Eddie Murphy. And this week I feel very much like Vampire in Brooklyn, which critics believe is profoundly unfunny and never scary.
Yeah, I'm glad you kind of explained that because the reference went straight over my head.
A terrible movie from the 90s starring Eddie Murphy. And it's not a comedy, it's like a vampire movie. And so it's a great parallel with my amazing laugh last week.
See. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better anyway.
I had to go through a list of the worst Eddie Murphy movies, and this one is one that is the only one I recognized, okay? So.
And how about your beer? What have you got?
I'm having, because of the situation, I'm having something strong. It's a Formbridge Jaipur 5.9 India Pale Ale.
Nice. I've seen that. It seems like a lot of curry houses in London have that on tap. It's pretty nice. It's
very nice. I've just this is the first time I try it. Recommend it.
Good news. Not much to report from my side. I'm looking a little bit like, well, Kenny described my current look as like the podcast logo because I've had my head shaved. It just looks like an egg wearing headphones.
For me, it looks like you took the red pill and you finally exited the Matrix, and life kind of sucks on the outside, but at least you're spiritually free.
Anyway, that's enough about us and our drinks. Let's start with the Coppa Italia as it's fresh. We've all watched the game. A fresh wound for you, Kenny. Exactly. How do you feel about the game now? Do you feel like it was a deserved victory for Juve?
It was one of those cliche game of two halves, wasn't it? I felt like Juve were fortunate to go in tied, to be honest. Atalanta definitely had the better of the first half. Should really have been a couple of goals up within 5 minutes. I felt should have had a penalty. I know Gasperini felt that as well. I know neither of you are convinced. But, I mean, the second half, after the sort of first 10 minutes, Atalanta just faded, didn't they? So I mean, on the balance, it was a close game, really. Atalanta had the better of the first half, Juve had the better of the second half, and games like that are decided by fine margins, just to throw another cliche into the mix. So while obviously disappointed for Atalanta that they didn't pick up their first piece of silverware to mark this incredible, or their first piece of silverware in the Gasperini to mark this incredible team, that wait still goes on. But I mean, you can't say that it was daylight robbery or anything either. But one positive for me was watching a game with fans inside the stadium again. That was really, really heartwarming as a football fan to see, and what a difference it made.
Yeah, definitely. And what did you think about it, Boaz? Just thinking of in the second half, I suppose Juve just kind of showed up when they needed to, didn't they? And they seem to be building a bit of kind of momentum in their performances.
In a season where supposedly Andrea Pirlo has been a failure, he's managed to lift 2 pieces of silverware. That definitely goes to his credit. It has to be said that in the same period, Antonio Conte lifted the one that mattered. But at the same time, I thought that Juventus, as opposed to their performance that we spoke about last week against Milan, they came much sharper to this game. They seem to have a slightly better game plan. And of course, it helps when your big match players, or rather the two big signings from the summer, come good.
Yeah, what else do we need to talk about? I think we should mention Chiesa, maybe, because we had him potentially as a nomination for Living the Vidal Loca, that chance that he whacked off the post, but he kind of redeemed himself after that, didn't he? Lovely goal.
Yeah, it was a very, very tidy finish, and yeah, just to reiterate what Boaz said, really, that those two were the two that came good, really, on the night for Juve. But for me, the big story of this has to be Buffon, really. Not for necessarily his performance on the night, but the fact that it's his 6th Coppa Italia victory. There was a really good stat, actually, that I saw, which was just to kind of give his career a nice bit of symmetry, that in his first Coppa Italia victory in '99, when he was at Parma, he was playing alongside Enrico Chiesa, and in his 6th, and what will probably be his last Coppa Italia victory, he was playing alongside Federico Chiesa. So that was really nice, and also to see the team throwing him up in the air, doing that. It's almost like a sort of American sports thing that happens with the coaches and the fans as well. They're kind of singing Gigi Gigi. Yeah, I thought that was quite nice, despite my disappointment at the way the result went. Happy for him to end his time at Juve in that way.
Latching on to Kenny's mention of Gigi Buffon, I thought that his announcement of him leaving Juventus was quite interesting as well. You'd imagine that he'd be leaving like the club legend that he is, but his first words were, "Let me get out of the way. Let me stop disturbing around here." I think that probably has there's probably some personal issues behind this, and maybe he expected to play a little bit more. But he also said that a very prominent person in Calcio has spoken to him about joining their clubs, and the rumors are right now, and I don't like to peddle rumors, but just for the sake of it, the rumors are that he's either spoken to Jose Mourinho in Rome, who we keep saying they really need a keeper, or he's spoken to Galliani at Monza. I bet you he'll surprise us and either retire or go somewhere completely exotic that I didn't mention just now.
Yeah, and it's nice that he at least gets a bit of a send-off after this game, because we've spoken a few times on this pod about all the players that have retired or left clubs they've been at for a long time while there've been no fans in the stadium. That's always a bit sad. Anyway, we should sort of discuss the implications of this game for the top 4 race, because both of these teams still heavily, I mean, Atalanta guaranteed top 4, but
yeah,
definitely gunning for that 2nd place. Let's speak about Atalanta first, because they looked a little bit flat in the second half of this game, and they've got a big game against Milan this weekend, which if Milan win this game, they finish 2nd, And if they lose and Juventus win, and Juventus and Napoli win, then they're likely to miss out on the top four entirely. Absolutely massive game. Do you think Atalanta are going to be up for it, Kenny, or do you think they're going to have a bit of a hangover from the Coppa defeat?
Yeah, so will they be up for it? Absolutely, they will be, because Atalanta. Well, let's talk about it from a club point of view. The difference between Atalanta finishing second, which they would do if they win this game, and finishing fourth, which is very possibly where they would finish if they don't win it. For the club, that difference apparently is worth 10 million euros, which I've said this before on previous pods, is not going to change the world for some of the bigger clubs, but for a club like Atalanta, that money means a lot. But from the players' point of view as well, this is a team that has been driven by beating records and smashing club records left, right, and centre. At times coming close to last season, they came close to being the top scoring team in Europe. And for a while, they were actually on course to do that until Bayern overtook them. And here they've got the opportunity to break another one of those records and be the first ever Atalanta team to achieve second place in Serie A. So they will absolutely be up for it. There's the other factor at play, though, is whether they will physically be up to it rather than up for it. And that, I don't know. Obviously, that is an advantage that Milan will have. There's no getting around that. And I think this theme that we're seeing, which we saw last season as well with Atalanta, when it got to the end of the season, especially when there were so many games crammed together, that they struggled when they were playing like more than one game in a week in the second half of games, really. And I mean, that happened against Genoa. They almost threw away a 3-goal lead. It happened against Juve, and they'll be playing against a Milan team that have had a week's rest. So that's definitely going to factor into it, I think. Whether or not that will be enough to disadvantage them to the point of losing the game, I don't know. But there's all sorts of things at play here. It's going to be really, really fascinating to see it play out.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting distinction you draw there between being up for it and up to it. I think I asked you at the start of the pod if you were up for it, both of you. So hopefully you're up to it as well. But yeah, Boaz, we should talk about this a bit from the Milan side. And I mentioned just before that Milan really need to win this game now. And obviously that's because of the very disappointing draw with Cagliari last weekend. Can you take us through that one if it's not still too painful? What went wrong there?
Essentially, Milan committed harikiri, or at the very least damaged their Champions League aspirations very badly. As you mentioned, now basically only a win against Atalanta will guarantee Champions League qualification. And of course, Juventus are playing Bologna, so on paper at least, that's a much easier game. First of all, I should say that Milan should probably play all games in Turin moving forward, because they scored 10 goals last week in Turin. Or at the very least, maybe they should have held back on one or two of those goals to keep them for the Cagliari game. But at the end of the day, there's been a couple of issues that I've kind of moaned about or mentioned many times in the podcast. One of which, Milan is one of the youngest sides in Europe, the youngest side in the top 5 leagues. And in a game like Cagliari, where you needed grit, but you also needed head, it felt like the squad wasn't quite there. Secondly, the big Zlatan question. As much as I personally love the guy, and I know you guys are appreciative of him as well, he missed half of the games this season. I mean, that's already, when your star striker is missing half the games, that's a big deal. But the man they brought ostensibly to replace him has yet to get a goal for Milan and has looked like a man who hasn't played football for a couple of years. A quick reference to the Cagliari game. There was a moment in the 89th minute when Cagliari brought on former Juventus players Asamoah and Rugani, whereas Milan brought on Mandzukic. The first two being defensive players, and the second one allegedly being an attacking player. And I mean, that was kind of symbolic, given that this game played a big advantage to Juventus' side. But I'd like to spend some words on Cagliari, because I'd be remiss not to give them some credit. despite being seen celebrating with champagne before the game, given the fact that they just managed to qualify, they just managed to get saved from relegation since the Benevento match had already occurred. They put on a really resilient performance. They probably had the better chances, and if it wasn't for a couple of amazing Donnarumma saves, they could have won 1 or 2-0. And I also want to give credit to Simplici, who is one of the free coaches who took over in mid-season, and we have to all four, I think 3 or 4. What was it? There was Torino, Genoa, and Cagliari, and they all saved their teams. Anyways, Simplici was said before the game that when he walked into the change room, the first thing he had to convince the players was that the names on the back of their shirts didn't go down on the field, but rather the men inside the shirt. In a sense, he was saying, look, you might have big names on your shoulders, but you haven't done anything here.
Yeah, impressive that they managed to pull out that performance after drinking champagne before the game.
Maybe that's their secret card. Maybe they should do that every game.
Yeah, Kenny used to always laugh at me having a pint before 5-a-side, but that was only like 20 minutes at a much slower pace. So it's probably an honourable.
I guess it's a pretty good segue. I spoke about Cagliari putting on an incredible performance against Milan despite not having much to fight for. And in the past, the cliche around Serie A was that towards the end of the season, clubs that didn't have any cards in the game would kind of be on the beach by this point. But if anything, these last couple of match days have proven that there is no easy game in Serie A. Benevento were essentially relegated because of a last-minute equalizer from Crotone, who have been down for months. Cagliari, who, as I said, saved themselves, defended as if they were trying to get into a Champions League final. And in other games, I mean, Fiorentina, who were up against Napoli, despite losing in the end, they really put on a great performance. And the same can be said for Lazio, who didn't really have too much to fight for, but gave Torino the game of their lives.
Yeah, good to see that they're not all on the beach already. Should we do quick predictions for this Atalanta Milan game? I think I'm going to stick by my prediction that Juventus are going to miss out. Obviously, meaning that Milan have to win this game. What do you guys reckon?
Juventus could lose.
Yeah, I don't think Juventus is going to lose to Bologna.
I think the Milan are going to win this game. And I don't think it's going to be for Atalanta being on the beach either. I just think that game will have taken quite a lot out of some already tired legs, and I do think that will probably be what makes the difference in the end. Milan will be fresher, and while Atalanta are playing for like a club record, as I mentioned earlier, I'm just going to completely contradict myself here and say that what Milan are playing for is a much bigger prize, because Atalanta essentially have, their mission for the season has been accomplished. So yeah, for me, Milan.
Boaz, feeling confident, feeling our confidence.
First of all, the last game Milan played in the Champions League was in March 2014, so that's a long absence. And unfortunately, I think Milan will not win this game. I think they'll probably lose 3-0. Pioli has never beaten Atalanta since he's been in Milan, and as I said, in the last game they showed that they were very nervous, and I think it would be a shame after such an amazing run throughout 2020 and 2021, but I find it very hard that they'll beat Atalanta. I should say that if Milan don't qualify for the Champions League, they'd be the first winter champion not to qualify for the top 4 spots in Serie A history.
Okay, well, let's wait and see. We should speak briefly also about Napoli, who are the other team in contention for 2 of these Champions League spots that are still available. They've been in really good form recently, and they need to beat Verona at home to secure the top 4. I mean, I can't personally see them failing to do that. Can you see them slipping up at this stage?
I don't think so. No, I think Napoli are favourites to win that game. But I mean, Verona's not an easy game by any stretch. It's going to be Juric's last game as Verona manager. So I don't know if that will be something that will have them charged up a little bit. The players. because he's done an incredible job there. So my expectation is that Napoli will win because, like you said, they've just been absolutely amazing. And again, at the weekend, it's another game that they won 2-0, but really they hit the woodwork. They were just great yet again. And with a full squad to pick from, I think Napoli beat Verona.
Yeah. And other games which we should quickly mention the Rome derby. Obviously, a game which would normally hold a lot of significance. The way it panned out, there's not a lot left to play for either of these teams, but good for Fonseca to get to get a win in his last game at the Olimpico, and one of the first wins that he's managed to get against top 6 opposition since he's been at Roma. I think before this game he was just 3 out of 30 points. So good to get our monkey off his back before he makes space for the new one.
The new one. That's his name in Rome. He's not special anymore. He's just new.
Not the special one, not the happy one, not the calm one, the new one.
We're getting rid of the old coach, bring in the new one.
Yeah, exactly. And for supporters of Tottenham Hotspur and Roma, of which I'm sure there are many, it's the same guy. Anyway, while we're on managers, we should talk about Mancini's contract being extended just before the Euros. So somewhat curious timing. I don't know if he had another job offer on the table or something, but they've extended it until, is it 2024, Boaz?
Yeah, he's going to do until the World Cup. And there were rumors that a few clubs were looking at him, including Juventus, although I don't know how much substance there is to these rumors. But in either case, the Fiji moved lightning fast.
Yeah, indeed. And also, just before we move on to good week, bad week, there is more Zlatan news. We haven't had Zlatan news for a couple of weeks.
Because he's always injured.
It doesn't usually keep him out of the news. He hasn't headlined any festivals either, so... Yeah, what's going on with Zlatan, Boaz?
Zlatan damaged his knee cartilage in the win against Juventus, and it's been officially announced that he will not play in the Euro with Sweden, which is kind of sad. It was kind of a nice fairy tale, and if you remember in the few games he did play in a few weeks back, he set up like 4 goals out of 5 or something like this. I think the Euro is going to lose one of its big personalities, but maybe it's a good thing for Milan.
It's a good thing for the FIFA edition of the game. Well, maybe they don't do those anymore, do they, actually? But remember when they used to make FIFA World Cup and stuff? Yeah, well, let's move on to good week, bad week, because it's a pretty easy one to do this week, I think.
I think so.
Any objections to Juventus for good week, having hauled themselves back into the contention for the top 4 and won a trophy?
No, I don't think anyone was... I don't think there are enough clubs playing for anything for that to be challenged. I guess the only one you could say is Torino or Cagliari. But I mean, are we really giving good weeks for weeks in which teams have just drawn?
Also, Torino shipped 4 goals against Spezia in the previous game to last, so hardly a memorable week.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, good on those clubs for staying up. They both looked at times like they were dead certs to go down, but it has to be Juve.
Yeah, I mean, partly because of circumstance, with Milan dropping points. This week has definitely become a good week for them, both in terms of results and in terms of luck.
Yeah, and obviously bad week for Benevento, who were relegated after that Torino draw with Lazio.
Yeah, and the style in which they were relegated as well. So to concede a goal against Crotone in injury time when it looks like you're taking it down to the wire, and then for Lazio to have what to me looked like a perfectly legitimate goal chopped off and miss a penalty, and I guess adding spice to that whole thing, the Inzaghi brothers, Yeah, it's been quite obviously a bad week for Benevento, and a shame to see them go down because they were a lot of fun many times, especially earlier on this season. So I do think they'll be missed in Serie A.
We failed to mention it on the podcast, but a couple of weeks ago, Benevento's president Vigorito went on a epic rant about how the Serie A is trying to damage the teams from the south. Bearing in mind this was after they just played Cagliari, which is even further south than Benevento, so he was slightly misguided geographically. But I mean, Benevento have some fair recriminations for some decisions that were given against them, particularly the penalty that was not given to them against Cagliari, which could have made a world of difference. It went to VAR, and I think this is also a separate talking point that the VAR has been a nightmare in Italy the past few weeks, and it's been used as kind of a on-the-field review instead of just being used the way VAR is supposed to be. The game between Inter and Juve, which we mentioned earlier, was marred with errors, and as I said, Benevento have some fair recriminations, but ultimately 10 points in the entire return leg of the league is just not good enough.
Yeah. I guess another good shout for this would be Monza in Serie B missing out on promotion after finishing third and going out 3-2 on aggregate to Cittadella, particularly that first leg that they lost 3-0 with the stars that they've recruited Monza to fall at that hurdle. Not great, but yeah, I still think it has to be Benevento.
And on the subject of Monza, this is a brief point, but the Salernitana players were caught on camera using all sorts of expletives against Balotelli and against the Monza players, saying we went up and you didn't, essentially.
Well, maybe next season with a better goalkeeper,
maybe
we'll be talking about them again. It's time to move on to the honourable and dishonourable mentions section. And Boaz, you've got a very dishonourable one to kick us off with.
I'm adding this to my series, things that you shouldn't do. And in this case, the thing you shouldn't do is violence and property damage. Essentially,
vandalize cars.
Essentially,
it's a no-no.
Genoa striker Gianluca Scamacca, who we've spoken about quite a lot this season, his dad broke into the Roma's training ground Trigoria and started smashing up cars with his with a crowbar. And apparently there was one of the junior teams was there, and they got really frightened and were locked away in like a change room. And this maniac was smashing up the cars until the police came. And later on in the week, Gianluca Scamacca himself came out. Oh, but I should also add he was wearing a Sassuolo top while he was doing all of this. But Gianluca Scamacca came out and said that he is estranged from his father and that he has no idea what this was all about, and that his parents are separated, and that he actually doesn't speak to his dad. So very random, and we don't like to see that.
You kind of left us on a cliffhanger there for a moment. You said Scamacca came out himself. I thought you were going to say, and then he started vandalizing cars.
Scamacca, of course, was in the Roma youth system before he went on to PSV to make his bones.
Okay, so there is some connection there, although unclear exactly what it is. Anyway, I wanted to give on a completely different note.
He's just angry because Jose Mourinho was hired.
Yeah, very possibly. I just wanted to give an honourable to Ilicic. I think it's an honourable for his Liverpool tattoo. I think it's just quite funny that as a professional footballer, he got a tattoo of another team. And also the sponsor was on the shirt. Yeah,
that's what bugs me.
The tattoo.
Like, the tattoo is fine, but why? No, actually, the tattoo is terrible. He doesn't have fingernails, but we're not getting into that. But, like, why did he have the sponsor? Like, the sponsor might change, but, like, I don't understand him having you'll never walk alone. I understand him having his number on his back. I just don't get why the sponsor is in this tattoo.
Maybe he got paid for it.
It's from a photo, but come on, it doesn't look realistic anyway, so just get rid of the sponsor.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is a tribute to Liverpool or if it's paying tribute to Atalanta having beaten Liverpool at Anfield.
I think it's paying tribute to himself for playing at Anfield.
He's a Liverpool supporter, according to reports.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway.
So, because he actually scored in that game against Liverpool as well.
Must be a momentous occasion in his career.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit of both. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I'll give him an honourable. It's definitely an honourable, not a dishonourable. But as this one is a dishonourable, though, Bonucci getting himself in some trouble, potentially.
Yeah, this is news that broke just today, but there's a company that's rather imaginatively called World Soccer Agency, and it's run by a guy called Alessandro Lucci. And amongst their clients is Leonardo Bonucci and the former agents for the likes of Scamacca, who we just mentioned, but also Castrovilli and Kulusevski, claim that Lucci has used Leonardo Bonucci to intimidate players to join this World Soccer Agency. And so the FIGC has now opened an official inquiry. That doesn't look too good with the Euros coming up, and Bonucci obviously being rock in the back for Italy.
Yeah, you can add blackmail to your list of things that you should
Or henchman. Don't be a henchman.
Okay, Kenny, let's change the tone and give an honourable for an actual good bit of football.
Yeah, well, I'm giving an honourable to Goran Pandev for about the fifth time this season. But maybe we're milking the fact that he's coming to the end of his career and still capable of doing some wonderful things on the football field. But yeah, this is for him scoring a goal and providing an assist in what is possibly his last home game for Genoa, and also nicely poetic as well that this week is the week that he was officially confirmed in that North Macedonian squad for the Euros. So an honourable mention to Goran Pandev, and we may not have another opportunity to give him another honourable.
Yeah, can make the most of it. And as a man who has appeared a few times this season, there's another dishonourable for Commisso.
Yeah, Rocco Commisso seems to be really enjoying his presence in these honourable, dishonourable mentions. This week he had an epic rant in a press conference where essentially he offered up Fiorentina to sell to the journalists in attendance. He's like, I'm willing to sell Fiorentina within the next week. Which one of you guys is willing to put up the money? I've spent 170 million on this club. And there's a lot of other colorful things that he said. But essentially, the crux of it was that journalists in Florence are not dishonest about him and about the club, and that is the reason why Iachini didn't stay and why he had to bring in Prandelli.
Yeah, so a dishonourable for the rant, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. It's colorful, but the media in Italy were saying we brought in an American owner hoping that he would bring in American business methods, and instead he's behaving like a Italian mafia cliche.
Yeah, that's a dishonourable for sure. We'd need to actually get the honourable and dishonourable league tables out for next week. Find out who's up there.
Pandev probably wins.
Yeah. Another thing that we'll be totting up is Kenny's goals honourables. Kenny, who's got a goals honourable this week?
Yeah, I've got honourables for 3 goals this week, and my theme this week is variety because the goals were too different to each other. So the first one is the acrobat De Frel in Sassuolo's 3-1 win over Parma. The second one is Pedro the Rocket in Roma's 2-0 victory over Lazio. And then I've got Zapata for a sweeping move. I think it was the opener against Genoa in that game that Atalanta won 4-3. So that's my goals honourables this week.
Thanks for that, Kenny. And back to violence with Boaz.
That's my new it's going to be my new podcast, Back to Violence with Boaz.
Yeah, do you want to tell us about this bust up or almost bust up?
I mentioned earlier that Lazio put on one hell of a fight against Torino in a game where Torino had to get a result to guarantee them remaining in Serie A. And this putting up a fight extended to off-the-field antics as well. First of all, as soon as the final whistle went, the people had to physically restrain Cairo and Lotito from coming to blows. This is hot on the heels on the first leg of this game, where Torino alleged that Lazio players are the ones who got them COVID. And in this game, Urbano Cairo mentioned that Insigne was playing with bloodshot eyes, which he claims was a kind of a compliment. Both Insigne and Lazio are saying that they're considering legal avenues, because Urbano Cairo is suggesting that Immobile is kind of doping or whatever, or at the very least playing with COVID. And Cairo ended this all with saying, I really hope that Immobile scores a ton of goals at the Euros. So grow up, guys.
Yeah, the Lazio statement that you were reading out before, but it's definitely worth a read for anyone who reads Italian, or get someone to translate it for you. Very funny. And speaking of sarcasm, Boaz,
following on from the refereeing scandal that I mentioned in the Juve Inter game, which was one of the worst performances I've seen in a while. Sinisa Mihajlovic was quick to say that I'm sure that the league will send us a ref like we need, a ref who doesn't just is not at his first legs, a ref who knows what he's doing, someone like Valeri, Giacomelli, someone with talent. So he's firing it up already. We said that it's unlikely that Genoa will get a result, but stranger things have happened.
And Kenny, am I reading this correctly that you're going to give a dishonourable to Atalanta fans?
I have no choice but to give a dishonourable to Atalanta fans, I'm afraid, given the precedent that we've set on previous podcasts when Inter, for example, were celebrating their title victory. And we give them a dishonourable for congregating en masse. Well, Atalanta fans did it as well before the Coppa Italia final. The Ultras congregated outside the Atalanta team hotel, definitely not social distanced, letting off, flares and things that Ultras do. But yeah, again, in this time of pandemic, yada, 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 it's got to be a dishonourable. It's unfortunately, those are the rules. I just apply the rules.
You're definitely right too. I do look forward to the time we don't have to give dishonourables to fans for celebrating. But everything you said definitely is correct. Boaz, do you want to give us some comic relief to end on? What's this dishonourable for a FIFA board member about?
I'm not sure it's so much comic relief as much as someone who might be a little bit disconnected from reality. But in any case, FIFA board member Evelina Cristallin was discussing the Super League idea. And essentially she was saying a lot of things that made a lot of sense. We need to curb expenditure in football. We need to make sure that the clubs are living within their means. Some clubs have it better than others, and so we need to make sure that the whole of the football movement moves at once, which is really commendable and makes a lot of sense. But then she went on to say, if Cristiano Ronaldo came to Juventus, there's no reason why Zidane can't come back. Well, the reason is his salary is very high, and you just said that salaries are a problem. So, firm dishonourable for me.
Yeah. Definitely glad that you brought that one to our attention. Thanks very much, as always. That is all we've got time for this week. If you don't already, please do subscribe to our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your audio.
We'll speak to you next week. Until then, enjoy the football.
Che sta decretando lo scudetto del Milan in questo preciso istante. La Juventus è campione d'Italia questa data, il 6 maggio.
Del anticipo, la Roma è campione d'Italia per la stagione 2000-2001.